Welcome, Ken Loach. Welcome, Paul Laverty, Mark Womack. Welcome. And it's unexpected this year, Ken Loach, because I will give you a headset first of all. Yeah, so we'll wait while we put that in. I don't know if you can hear or not. Yep. Okay, good. So I was saying that we sort of unexpected here this year. Again, you know, it's a great pleasure for us, but it was really a last-minute entry, if you like. You didn't want to come to Cannes. What happened?
No, we were always very pleased to come, but. In fact, we didn't think we would be ready until June, and then we were a little ahead of schedule. There was a word that there might be a vacancy at the festival, so Rebecca O'Brien showed the film without my knowing, and they thought, well, it would be okay to come, so here we are, and it's a great pleasure, as always.
Elle l'a montré sans vous dire parce que vous ne stressiez trop.
So she didn't tell you because she didn't want you to stress out?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. She's very considerate, but I'm stressed anyway. So.
Alors, l'année dernière, vous étiez.
So last year you were here with Looking for Eric, a comedy. This year it's a much more serious subject.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's a subject that Paul and I wanted to work on for many years, really, because the war against Iraq was a crime, illegal war with massive humanitarian consequences. And it's based on lies, and it's full of corruption, and it was fought for greed, and all these things we know, but the people who committed the atrocity are still walking free, you know, the Blairs, the Bushes, and so we have to keep them in the dock of public opinion, you know.
Paul Laverty,
I think with this film that you want to open up the coffin that was closed recently on this Iraq war. It's still very recent in our memories. You want to open the coffin, you know, and what horrors did you see there?
Well, I mean, it's funny because I think many of the elite in our societies want to forget about this war, saying we're bored with this war, that it's past. But this has certainly been the biggest tragedy of my lifetime. Over 1 million civilians killed in Iraq, mostly women and children, according to the NGOs, and they want to forget about it. And the people who are the intellectual authors of those wars, as Ken has said, you know, are celebrated as eminent statesmen. They're awarded with, like Blair, for instance, who's the peace envoy to the Middle East. Now that's an obscenity. And all we want is international law to be respected. We want Obama to respect the Convention Against Torture that he has signed. The previous regime implemented torture. They tried to legalise it. They undermined the Geneva Convention, which is a crime according to those laws that they have signed. And all we want them is to respect those laws, to do an investigation. And I think we have to remember the great example set by the Argentinians, who pursued the intellectual authors of their war over 30 years and put them in the dock just very recently, put them in prison. And I think we have to do the same with these people too.
It's very strong what you're saying there, Paul Laverty. And you always get a feeling of revolt in a way that you both have with your film and in your cinematographic desire.
Well, I guess that's one of the functions that filmmakers and writers have, isn't it? To do that. But the film is a fiction within that. I mean, that's the context. But the film is a story of Fergus, played by Mark, who is a contractor, was a private contractor in Iraq, and is some would say a mercenary. And it's a story of a close friend of his who is killed, and by investigating that killing, we hope that a lot of the ideas, that a lot of the things that we know about Iraq become clear.
Oui, tout à fait. C'est vrai que c'est un film qui
absolutely, it's a film
un peu comme une enquête.
that is a bit like an investigation. It's like a thriller as well. It's almost a vengeance film in a way. Mark Womack, this man was sullied irremediably by the war that he carried out in Iraq. I mean, he's got an inner wound, a deep inner wound.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's carrying a lot of guilt for the things that he's seen and done, and I think that he's also carrying guilt for the death of his best friend, and I think that weight is a massive burden on him. and I think that the film begins with this investigation, and I think as the investigation carries through, the weight becomes heavier and heavier until eventually I think it's inevitable what happens to him, really.
C'est une forme de rédemption qu'il cherche.
Is he looking for redemption?
I think so. I think he is looking for redemption. I think that's one of the driving forces that he has. I think he finds himself on this road, and I think he knows he has to continue down that till he finds redemption.
Can I just say one thing too? I think
Paul.
it's very, very interesting that we talked to many soldiers when they investigated this story, and many contractors too. And what we actually found out with this war is being privatised. You know, this war would not have been possible without the whole private element. And what's incredible is that so many people are answerable not to any parliament or to any democratic organisation, but to executives and to shareholders. And the only people who have benefited from this war are the corporations. Because even according to the right-wing point of view, these neocons, it's been a disaster for them. They've made Iran stronger. They've brought Al-Qaeda back into Iraq. They've made the streets of Britain and the United States more dangerous. So it's been an absolute total disaster and a tragedy, especially for the Iraqi people. But the only people who have benefited are the corporations. I mean, that is an absolute obscenity.
There's
a very strong scene in the film. I'd like to have known how you shot it, how Mark lived it as well. It's the torture scene. How did you construct this scene?
Well, the form of torture is waterboarding, which the American government approved. Senior American politicians joked about. It's torture. It's a feeling that you're drowning, that water is poured through a cloth down, the water goes down your nose, it fills your lungs, it's like you're drowning. And the scene is, well, I hope it's powerful. I mean, it's brilliantly played by Mark and by Trevor Williams, who's the guy who's tortured.
Oui.
And we thought, we tried to do it with a mask so that he would be protected, but actually it didn't work. So he actually was waterboarded. And if any journalist thinks it's not serious, get in touch and we'll give you a demonstration and you'll see what it feels like. It's serious, it's serious. Not you, but we heard one or two, we thought it was a bit soft, but you know, come and try it, we're very welcoming. But what is interesting about it is that well, not only the fact of the torture, but the relationship between the two, the torturer and the tortured, because the torturer wants the truth. The tortured starts by telling lies. Then he tells half lies, half truths. Then he tells the truth. But it's not what the torturer wants to hear. So the tortured man tells lies to end the torture. So the only justification for torture is that you get the truth and it'll save lives thereafter. It doesn't work. Doesn't work, but the psychological battle is what's interesting, which they do fantastically.
Ils l'ont joué.
I mean, they played it remarkably well. I mean, Mark Womack, what was it like for you? Because apparently, you really lived it. You know, I mean, how did you experience this scene? How did you prepare yourself for it?
Well, it was very difficult. I mean, I was blessed to have Trevor Williams play the scene with, to be honest. I thought he was absolutely fantastic, but there were a few moments in there where I got quite afraid, to be honest, because I was worried that it was so real that I got a bit frightened for Trevor, and but there was only one way to play that scene, and that was to commit to it fully. If you wanna play that scene properly, then you have to commit to that fully.
Can I just say one tiny little thing in relation to this? And I think it's very, very important to remember. I mean, this was approved by Dick Cheney, Colin Powell, John Ashcroft, who is the Attorney General, Tennant, who is the ex-head of the CIA, and Condoleezza Rice. It was called the Principals Committee, and they said that was not torture. They called it enhanced interrogation techniques. So what they did was they actually justified torture, which is a criminal offence. And this is why we say to Obama, he must respect this convention which he has signed, been signed by 110 countries, and these people should be put on trial for their crimes. They've undermined the Geneva Convention, and everyone knows it. And no wonder the rest of the world, when they preach about respect for international law and they do nothing in relation to this convention, call them hypocrites, and rightly so.
Quand on voit votre film,
So when we see your film, Ken Loach,
à tous, on est
you know, we're terrified by it. We're shocked, we're scandalized. There's this truth, and at the same time, you feel sort of powerless. You know, so even war is privatizing, terrible things happening, and we can't do anything about it. So that's terrifying as a viewer.
Well, I mean, we can do something about it, of course. I mean, you can't put all the answers to the world's problems in one film, but clearly it's politics. And how great it would be if we didn't have to bother, if we could just watch the football or the whatever and not bother. It'd be great. But sail in the boats, yeah. But there is no way out. It will only change through politics. I mean, films can make you think. It can give you another perspective. You can see the world, you know, maybe in the way we would like you to see it. But in the end, it's your responsibility. I don't mean you as an individual, you know, I'm great that you are. I'm sure you can't change the world but on your own, but it's our collective responsibility. It's our collective responsibility with what we do, with the knowledge we have. And it's only when there's a shift in the political struggle, can we clean up the world, physically and morally.
Ce que j'aime beaucoup dans vos films,
What I like in your films is that you have something to say, you show us something on the world, but as well you tell stories. I mean, you still love telling stories.
Yeah, yes, and I think what has been really good in Paul's script and in Mark's performance is that our feelings for Fergus are very ambiguous, because you can see the humanity in the man, you can see the boy he was before he went to war. And I think you'd have to have a heart of stone not to feel compassion for him. At the same time, acknowledging the terrible things that he's been a part of, and in a way, that's the tragedy of the character. That he's on an inexorable process, but there's a man inside that you would like to reach.
Eh bien, vous nous touchez.
Well, you certainly reach us, Ken Loach, once again. Thank you very much for coming to Cannes. Paul Laverty, Mark Womack, thank you very much for Route Irish.